Releasing Trauma is sponsored by the Global Association for Trauma Recovery. The Global Association for Trauma Recovery is a social impact organization serving as a resource for survivors and their families, dedicated to facilitating change by spreading trauma-related awareness and thus creating a more trauma-informed world. Learn more at gaftr.org. Welcome to Releasing Trauma, a Survivor's Podcast. I am your host, Tracy Osborne. I am a survivor of emotional bullying, rape, sexual assault, domestic abuse, and grief. After losing my husband in 2019, I set off on a new adventure to help other women release their trauma and create a life they can cherish. Each week, I will feature a guest expert or a survivor to share their stories, tips, wisdom, and more. The goal is so that you can take away even just the smallest nugget of information you can use in your life right now to make a change, and to remind you that you're not alone. There is life after trauma, and you can move from victim to thriver and create a life you can cherish. Hey everybody, welcome back to this show. I am your host, Tracy Osborne. With me today is Dana Parker, and we are going to be talking about healing after trauma, but we're going to focus on how, number one, how trauma affects your brain, and number two, how to use self-compassion to help you heal. So Dana, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Well, I'm thrilled to have you. This is going to be a great topic. It's not something that we talk about often enough, the self-compassion piece.
Yes, which is key. It is so important, so important to
it is.
Healing.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we dive into that, though, why don't you tell us a little bit about your story?
Yeah. So my story, my healing journey really began 12 years ago. When, I was a young mom and I had two little boys, and I was in some patterns that I didn't really love. And I actually had been keeping a secret for several years of childhood sexual abuse. And I didn't realize at the time, but it was really affecting my day to day. I was emotionally eating and Netflix numbing and just spending my days really numbing out because I didn't know what to do with all the emotions and all the weight that I had carried from keeping a secret. And so most of my childhood, I experienced sexual abuse and I didn't tell anyone. I actually stopped at about 10 or 11. And from there, didn't start talking about it until 23. So 23 years old, I started talking about it. And what happened was almost like this dam of emotions that I had kept in broke open and sent me kind of on an emotional roller coaster. I started having flashbacks and all kinds of things. And so it put me in a place where I knew I really needed something different. I needed help and I needed support. And I started looking. So, which really took me into the personal development world. I did therapy for a little bit. And something that I think is really important in any part of our healing journey, whether we're healing physical things, mental things, emotional things, is to really be in tune with your intuition. Let your intuition guide. No one healing journey, and this is what I tell a lot of my clients that I coach, no one person's healing journey is going to be exactly the same as the other. And so we get to be really in tune with our intuition. And at that time, I really felt like I was meant to look outside of just traditional therapy for what I needed for my journey. So put me in a place where I started into some personal development, started understanding the mental processes and how they affect our whole life, and how those impactful experiences from childhood still are running programs and ideas in our brains and minds now, and how it affects our life, and really reclaiming the power of the mind to guide towards what you do want. So I felt so empowered and so incredible that I just kept following that path and following that journey. And now here 12 years later, I actually don't really ever experience the side effects of the sexual abuse anymore. It's not even a really consistent, regular thought. I definitely don't experience the same emotions about it. So it's been an incredible 12 years and a very unique journey for me, but that kind of is the bumper sticker version, if you will, of my journey.
Wow, that's quite the journey. I'm so sorry that you went through that as a child. Nobody should go through it, period, but especially with children.
Yeah.
And I completely get what you mean by, now it's not really a thought and there's not really any emotion attached to it.
Right.
That's kind of where I'm at with my healing journey as well. I can talk about being raped. I can talk about the sexual abuse or the domestic abuse or, losing my husband or any of that.
Yeah.
And the emotions attached to, or that used to be attached to that, are no longer there.
Yeah. It's powerful.
It's very freeing.
It is. It has been. Yeah, for sure. And worth the journey. That's what I really am here to share with people is, and this is, I do a lot in my coaching and I talk to a lot of people about my journey and I utilize a lot of what I used for healing in my coaching and more. And what I tell people is it is a commitment to do this. This isn't do one thing and it fixes everything in your life. No, growing and healing is a lifelong journey. It's a commitment to it because life continues to happen. The last 3 years personally have been some of the hardest of my entire life. And I'm so grateful that I took the time to heal and to learn tools because I utilize those tools and I've been able to bounce back faster now because of it. So committing to that journey was one of the best things I ever did for myself. Absolutely.
And I like that you said that, this is a lifelong journey because even though we may be at a point right now where we're quote unquote healed, you never know when trauma is going to strike again.
Yeah.
And like 3 years ago. So, having those tools, like you said, the tools, the empowerment, and the knowledge to be able to cope with whatever life throws at us makes those traumas, I don't want to say not necessarily as impactful, because that's just not true. But
yeah,
I think it makes us better able to deal with them.
Yeah, more resilient. That's the word that I love.
That's the word I'm looking for.
Resilient, because you definitely, especially the last 3 years have taught me that when you get knocked down and you go through trauma and other areas of life, it's still really painful. It's still highly emotional, but this next time around for me, the last 3 years, it's been a totally different journey through, and I've been more empowered, even though I have moments where there's so much emotion and so much stuff. I knew I was going to make it through it because I already made it through the trauma of the sexual abuse. And I knew that I could do it again, and I will do it again because I'm still healing past some of the things I've experienced.
Sure.
I'm healing through it now. And, but now that I've walked the journey of healing previous, I have a past experience knowing that I'll get through it. And so there's a confidence this time and a really like, a confidence and a more wisdom and more understanding of what it takes to heal. And self-compassion is probably for me, it's been one of the most incredible tools that I really wish I actually would have had earlier in my journey, especially as a recovering perfectionist and recovering people pleaser. Like self-compassion has been transformational for me, like life-changing. So it's why it's, to me, such a huge part of healing for all of us.
Absolutely. When Mark died, in 2019, I was better equipped to deal with his death. I wasn't totally equipped to deal with it, but I was better equipped because I had the knowledge of what happens, like when I lost my dad, when I lost my best friend, and when I lost my mom. So when he died, I had the knowledge of, some of the better ways to handle the grief and the processing and the dealing, instead of shoving down the grief or working through the grief, like immersing myself in work and stuff like that. I actually allowed it to happen.
Yeah.
And, I think because I allowed it to happen and I allowed myself that time and I did practice self-compassion. I wasn't hard on myself. If I wanted to sleep, I slept. If I wanted to eat ice cream, I ate ice cream. I just, whatever I needed. And I think I was able to process through it faster than some of the other deaths that I've dealt with, because I didn't allow myself to grieve those deaths.
Oh, exactly.
But this one I did,
Yeah, exactly. What's so interesting a lot of times with clients that I coach and things, they'll come to me and they're in the middle of a complete like life transformational moment of loss, divorce, things like that. And they're like, I just like, I'm not functioning like I used to. And I'm like, yeah, you're not supposed to. That's not how this goes, actually. This happened and life is going to look different. And you're going to get to have different ideas of what a daily life looks like now. There's going to be a lot more time for self, time to take good care of yourself, time for baths, time to grieve. I have a lot of clients that I recommend setting times, like time frames for yourself to feel, because our life now is so go, 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 go. And we can fill our life up with so much right now, incredibly so, with so much stuff that it's actually a way of numbing. Is the busy factor, keeping yourself so busy that you don't have time to feel or to check in. And so, I often will invite my clients to, schedule your time to cry, like schedule it. And I know it sounds kind of funny and a little bit structured, but those who don't know how to cry and don't know how to give themselves time, that scheduled time to feel is vital to moving through trauma, moving past it. And I also tell people, don't have expectations for time frames. Like, I'm only allowed to cry for 2 months from this loss. Like I just lost, my mom lost both of her parents in like 3-month period. Both of her parents passed away, and she was so close to them and so incredibly connected to them. And I remember, this was fall, I forget what year it was, but fall. And then by December, she was like, I'm not allowed to cry anymore. And I'm like, Mom, don't limit that. Don't give yourself that time frame, the time constrictions. Allow yourself the freedom to feel and to allow yourself to grieve as long as you need to. Now, I think it's okay and healthy to say, I'm going to give myself this time frame for the next 3 months. I'm going to be really gentle and really kind, and I'm going to allow myself to emotionally process and be in that. And then, 3 months passes by and you're like, okay, now I'm going to selectively choose my time to grieve a little bit more so I can move forward a little bit more. Like, that's healthy. That can be healthy. But I think just really constricting your time frames with grieving is just can be a really cause you to suppress a lot. And you're right. I think it prolongs the healing.
It does. And it's very detrimental because you're suppressing all those emotions. So they're trapped in your body.
Right.
And so it makes you depressed. It makes you sick. It makes you,
right.
You have all these things,
right.
Because you're trying to just suck it up as opposed to let it out.
Right.
And, and one of the things that I find with trauma when we're recovering from trauma is that, we go through that guilt and shame. And so we start guilting and shaming ourselves as opposed to practicing the self-compassion. And I'm no better than anybody else. I guilted myself, like when Mark died, I should have made him go to the ER. I should have started CPR sooner. Right. I should have done this. I should have done that.
Right.
And then I had to, stop and remind myself that I did everything that I could.
Exactly.
And that it wasn't my fault.
Right.
And I had to practice that self-compassion instead of the guilting and the shame and the self-hatred.
Yeah, I think it's really important for people to understand too, emotions are what wire the brain. So when we have these traumatic experiences and we're going into those spaces of guilt and shame regularly, it can actually keep us trapped in mental processes and mental cycles, and you're creating neural pathways of guilt and shame. And so it is why it's the idea is not to say you can never think those things or feel those things. The idea is to say become the observer of those things. Like really taking time, for example, so I used to have flashbacks of the sexual abuse that took place, and the emotions that would follow were so intense at first, so intense of fear and shame and guilt and I think those are some of the biggest ones, betrayal, things like that. And it would consume me and my day. And over time, as I started to step back into my power and say, okay, I started to understand, okay, these flashbacks, it's my brain showing me that I'm ready to deal with these things and move through it. That's beautiful. So that was a step for me in my mental process of it's okay. And I talk myself through it. It's okay, Dana. You're a grown woman now. That's a flashback from the past. And I'd have to talk myself through it. Yep. And later in my journey, more towards the end of when I remember, I feel like it was about 7 years in when I was finally like, oh my gosh, this doesn't affect me on a regular basis anymore.
Right.
And a lot of mental processing and work, but it was right around, the 5-6 year mark that I started learning about self-compassion. And what I started to do when those flashbacks would come up is I'd hold my heart and place my hand on my heart. And I would just offer love, self-compassion. Like, oh yeah, that was so hard, Dana. Yeah, that was a really hard experience. You did experience that and it's okay. You're safe. I've got you. You never have to experience that again because you're aware and you're awake and you understand now, and it's okay. And I started really implementing that if and when those flashbacks would happen. And now that, to me, over time, as I did that, it's as if that self-compassion now is the rewired version to those flashbacks, those visuals that I still have, but literally my body now reacts in self-love. It's now, oh my gosh, I love little me. That was really hard for her. And she was so brave and so sweet. And it's just incredible to have those scenes still play out at times in my brain and just to feel love for myself. It's such an incredible experience, and I can still get emotional about it because of what it took to get there. And what I got to navigate to get there was so hard and beautiful all at the same time, and that experience is what catapulted me into my career and what I feel like is my mission here. And because I dedicated my life to learning, I'm now sharing with people all over, and I'm helping people everywhere with what I learned. And that's incredible, and that's beautiful, and it's something I'm so passionate about. So now that's where I spend a lot of my time and energy. And this is a moment of like where I can really feel the beauty of it and feel on the other side like I am so proud of me, and that's incredible that I did that.
Absolutely. And you should be so proud of you. It's it's not an easy journey by any stretch of the imagination. Doesn't matter what the trauma is. The healing is it is not an easy journey. Agreed. And along with practicing the self-compassion and the self-love, that allows you to release the guilt and the shame and the self-loathing and the self-hatred. And so you are rewiring your brain. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's powerful. And now, and this is an invitation to anyone listening, it is pure courage to be willing and allow yourself to feel the deepest pains, to feel the deepest hurts, to feel that betrayal, to feel that grief and loss. It is pure courage. And that is something that we deserve to start sharing with one another and mirroring to one another and supporting each other with. Is, when our friends are in that space of grief and loss, it's reminding them, you are so brave and courageous for feeling that, for allowing yourself to feel it, because it actually, you could easily numb and you could easily just push through and busy yourself to pieces.
Yep.
And to feel, though, to really feel. And this is the power of feeling. There are so many people who are walking through life feeling numb, and they just don't feel much at all. And the power of emotions is Brene Brown talks about this in her research. You cannot selectively numb emotions. So when you don't allow yourself certain emotions, when you don't allow yourself to feel that grief, feel that pain, that betrayal, whatever the name of the emotions are, you're numbing the joy, the peace, the goodness, the beauty of life too. And so when you allow the full spectrum, you actually allow yourself to go to those higher places. You are making room. That's what I like to say. These emotions, if you hold on to them and don't let them flow through, they're in there taking up room and space and energy. And it takes a lot of energy to manage and to hold in all of those emotions. And you will get sick, and you will feel sad and depressed, possible anxiety. There's a lot there that can follow. But when you allow it to flow through and you allow yourself to feel, you are literally making room for higher levels of love, joy, peace. And everyone that I talk to, and in their goals and in what they want to experience, everyone wants more peace, more love, more joy, right?
Right.
Everyone wants that in their life. Well, the exchange is a willingness to feel, a willingness to truly feel. And Tracy, do you know what was so amazing over the last couple of years as I've really applied this? I believe that my soul came here for a human experience, a full human experience. And what's been incredible is I've become acutely attuned to my emotions and how I feel. There's these two parts of me I like to really highlight. There's the human part of me that fully feels, the betrayal, the pain, the hurt, all of the things that come up in this human life. And then there's my soul part. And I've noticed as I have really allowed myself to feel, and that time to feel through these big changes the last couple of years, after I flow through that, after those emotions flow through me, on the other side, as I've tuned in, my soul, it's almost as if it's deeply fulfilled, like soul fulfilling, that I'm alive and I'm allowing my fullest human experience of growth and expansion and the full feeling of everything. And it's been one of the most incredible side effects for me, is that soul part of me that's like, oh, I am so fulfilled that I'm allowed to feel it all, and that I'm in my driver's seat of my emotions. My emotions don't drive me. And it's been a really fun observation for myself.
That's incredible and absolutely beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing your insights and your learnings and your story with us. How can we find you online?
Yeah, so innerworldmovement.com for now. I am doing a revamp of my website, so it's just a basic right now, but soon there will be an upgrade. I'm really excited about that. That's a great way to get a hold of me. info@innerworldmovement.com. You can email us there. And there's going to be some exciting things happening this week. I'm actually starting my very first group coaching program called Reclaim You. Nice. It's a program for women to reclaim their freedom of mind, and really address generational cultural ideas and programming that we all carry. So I will be doing that one this fall and then another one in January, so that people can be looking for that. And there's more to come. So
very cool. Very cool. How exciting.
Thanks.
Well, listeners, I will have all of Dana's contact information in the show notes. Just head over to releasingtraumapodcast.com if you're listening for one of our partner stations. Pull up Dana's show and all her contact information will be there. So Dana, thank you again for joining us. This has been wonderful.
Thank you.
And listeners, thank you as always for tuning in, and we'll talk to you in the next show.